Recording. Going to my LinkedIn Live page and tapping to join. Go live. We are live. Good morning. It is 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I see green circles around my profile, so I think you can hear me. Hi, Shirley Lowe. Hey, Joanne. Good morning. Today we are talking about podcasting for young women leaders who speak. My name's Elizabeth Walker, host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast and Walker Consulting Workshops. And next week on Saturday, November 9th, actually, I guess that's this week, Saturday, November 9th at 12:30 Eastern Time in Astoria, New York. That's in the Queensboro of New York City. This is the QED Theater in Queens, New York, and I am teaching a class, Podcasting for Young Women Leaders Who Speak, and that is an in-person live event this coming Saturday. And so today, this LinkedIn Live audio is to help me practice for that class. So thank you so much for being here, and if you haven't already subscribed to email, you can do that on dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. And the reason why you might want to do that is because I send emails out each week with events like this one. And so this week, if you're an email subscriber, you'll also see the QED Astoria Theater event for the class Podcasting for Young Women Leaders Who Speak. So you can RSVP there. And the live in-person event this coming Saturday, Podcasting for Young Women Leaders Who Speak at the QED Astoria Theater in Astoria, New York, is a free event. Yes, it is free. And so the only thing is you have to RSVP. Okay, and so the link to do that is in my bio here on LinkedIn. So the active link right now in my bio here on LinkedIn gives you an access directly to that listing on the QED Theater's website. And I am saying QED as in Q like quiche, E like education, and D like drive. Those are three letters that stand for a Latin phrase. So that's the QED Astoria, November 9th at 12:30 Eastern Time, 1 hour class on podcasting for young women leaders who speak. Hi, Penny. And so today I will kind of outline some of the things I think I want to talk about in that class. Now, this is not the first time that I've done this particular live topic, right? Because if you look at the LinkedIn Live events, and also probably, I know all three of you see my live events all the time, right? You get invited because we're connected on LinkedIn. So podcasting for young women leaders who speak is a topic that I've been playing around with all summer. And so that's actually how I ended up booking the space to teach a class in New York, is because I wanted to see if this LinkedIn Live audio information would transfer to an in-person event. So very excited. I think the seating capacity there is 40 people. So we'll see how that turns out, and I'll report back to you all. So for today, you are my audience here, and we, want to go over the basics that we always talk about. I like to start off with saying that whether you are the guest or the host, I usually structure this LinkedIn Live audio talk around the one page of notes. So I talk in these LinkedIn Live audios about having a one page of notes in front of you when you're getting ready to sit down with someone for a podcast interview. Now, because I'm actually talking about both guesting and hosting, I'll do my best to remember to keep myself on track. Sometimes when I talk about the one page of notes, I am thinking about these notes for you as if you're a guest on a podcast. And you know what? Guess what? It also works if you're the host too. So we'll start with the top section of our one page of notes. Now, of course, you can be doing this on any one page. It can be on a Word doc, a Google Doc. It can be on a notepad file. Personally, I use an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So you can put it on a clipboard. You can use a notebook, whatever works for you. The most important thing is that we want to remember not to fill up all of this space. So the one page of notes, by the time you're done here, if you are using this 30 minutes as an exercise to make your one page of notes, you can do that. Or if you're just listening, you might be getting your day started. You might be working on chores. You might be opening windows on your computer to get yourself ready, to check your email, to do all those things that you do to get ready for the day ahead of you. And please listen and just follow along if you want to. So I want you to feel comfortable coming to these LinkedIn Live audio events, whether or not you're sitting there with a piece of paper and a notepad. So you can listen and pick up things, or you can actually do the exercise as well. So if you are looking at your one page of notes, then I recommend thinking about this in 3 big blocks. And you can even draw 3 giant boxes on your piece of paper if you want to. And I like to remake my one page of notes with you when I talk, so that in real time I am thinking about what this piece of paper looks like. Is it any different than the last time I made a page of notes? And these things help keep our ideas fresh, but the structure is the same. So that's what I think helps a lot, is maintaining the basic structure of your notes on your page. I will tell you a story. When I was in, I think maybe 9th grade, I was in geometry class, and I was okay at math. I wasn't great. I like math. I like math a lot, but I'm really slow with it. It takes me a long time to do the exercise. It takes me a long time in math class to complete the assignments or to complete the test, but I still really enjoy it. But also it has to do a lot with the teacher and the teaching style, So this one class, I was in geometry class, and the teacher, she was just so strict. And I thought, I'm never going to make it through this geometry class. Just being the student that I was, I still sit in the front class and I do my best. And I'm always, the kind of student who is calculating things like, okay, even if I'm not the smartest in the class, I know I can follow instructions, turn in homework in time, things like that boost my points over the course of the semester to try to get a decent grade. So in this one particular geometry class, I thought, okay, this woman, I don't know if I'll be able to relate to her. I don't know if, we're going to jive, if you will, student to teacher, but I'll be able to make it through the class because I can try to listen and learn from her style and just try to do whatever the teacher wants me to do, and I'll make it through. So what this particular teacher did, even though I didn't really, she was not a warm and fuzzy teacher, okay? You don't have to be warm and fuzzy to be a great teacher, but I'm just painting a picture for you. Very strict and just kind of no talking, no conversation, all business. But what this teacher did was she would grade our notebooks every week. And as part of this process where she would grade our notebooks every week, she also would make everybody come to the front of the class once a week with their notebook, and she would do this really quickly in front of the class. Now, she would sit at her desk, have you bring your binder, and then you present your binder to her at her desk, and she would glance at your notes, and she could tell within like 30 seconds if you were following her instructions. All she was doing was looking at the format of your notes, and if you were following the format of what she told you to do in terms of how your notes should look in your binder. Seriously, I thought this was ridiculous. I thought this is even worse. Oh no, this is going to be the thing about this class that is going to take me from figuring out how to survive to a really bad grade. I was sure of it, because as an independent smart woman, right? I know how to take notes. I don't need a teacher to tell me how to take notes. This is ridiculous. So that's how I felt about her and her ideas about note taking. Well, I'll tell you what, those notes really saved my grade that semester, and I still think about this woman's notes. Every day she would make us and look at our notepad, and she would make us start a fresh piece of paper every day in class in our notebook, and in the upper right-hand corner, what she would tell us to do was make a box. So in the upper right-hand corner, she would have us write a box, and she would give us 3 things to write, and it would be really as simple as like the name of the class, the date, and maybe something like the chapter we were working on, and it had to be exactly in that order. So let me wrap this story up before I take up the whole 30 minutes talking about this geometry teacher. So anyway, I thought this was really stupid. I thought that she was ridiculous for making us do our notebook this way. I thought she was ridiculous for making us show our notebook to her every week like this. So, what happened is having the notes so structured in her class are the reason why by the time it was time to take the test, I knew exactly how the notes go. I knew exactly what every page looked like. I knew what all of the notations meant. And boy, did that woman do me a favor that semester by just making me use the same format of notes every single day. So maybe this particular way that I like to draw out notes on my notepad comes from that a little bit. If you're using the same structure every single time, you can make changes and adjustments, but you are training yourself to use this as a tool that you can rely on. Okay, let me take a little break here for a second and check my notes, see if I have a cup of water nearby. Thank you again so much for being here today. I know I say this every time, but I really love doing these LinkedIn Live audios. So every Monday morning at 8:30 Eastern Time, you can find me here, and if you're subscribed to email, you'll get links and announcements. Okay, so on your one page of notes, if you have 3 boxes taking up the whole space of your one page of notes, in the very first box, I like to write my call to action. So what is your call to action? And we want to think about it as a one-liner. What can you say in one sentence? So, well, I've gotten so used to saying my one-liner. Sometimes I say it now, in rooms. I almost have to stop myself from introducing myself in a social setting with my one-liner because I teach this segment every Monday. But your one-liner, just as it sounds, what can you say really quickly that points people to find you somehow? And that's kind of the goal in my mind here for you is what's going to be something that, people can remember you by. It's kind of, we like to use the word branding a lot. A little bit, that's what it is, right? Hi, my name is Elizabeth Walker, host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast. You can go to dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com to sign up for email. So that's 2 sentences, but the first sentence you can say that anywhere, anytime, and also that secondary line can be optional, right? So your call to action in your one-liner can be something that you're just used to spitting out over and over again so that you almost forget what you're doing, that you almost forget that you're announcing a call to action. So that's why the one page of notes is a tool for you, and we want to keep it as simple as possible because when you are talking in your podcast interview, what we really want to do, in my opinion, is stay available and in the moment to have the conversation with the other person so that you are creating content that you're proud of so that you can open yourself up to ask and answer questions that maybe are not on your outline. Sometimes you will have a script or not a script, but maybe you'll have an outline of topics and the order you want them to go in. And hopefully this one page of notes is how you can help keep yourself on track with marketing yourself through the podcast interview without having to think about it, right? We want this to be second nature for you. So whenever somebody invites you to a podcast or whenever you set up a meeting to interview somebody, you already kind of go into this mode with your notes without thinking about it. Okay. Hey, Brenda, welcome. And Lisa, welcome. And you know what? It's 8:45, so we have exactly 15 minutes left. So let me get to the second box on our one page of notes. This is where I like to put a couple of bullet points. And when I say a couple, I do personally for my one page of notes, I mean two. So this is where I like to jot down a couple of words or one or two sentences that remind me of stories that I want to share. And right now on my one page of notes, I am going to write down geometry teacher because I just shared that story with you about my geometry teacher and how much I hated her notes. And it turns out that her note-taking is something that has stuck with me. And now I'm really thankful for the way that she graded our notes and made us really particular about our note-taking. So that was one story that I shared. And now that I'm practicing sharing this story, maybe I'll keep it. So these are stories that you can consider signature stories is what I would recommend. Now, I have to tell you, I personally am trying to figure out what my signature stories are, and this might be the case for you too. So maybe you're playing around with what stories work for you, and that's great. The point is, for the one page of notes, keep your reminder notes here to one or two. Excuse me. Okay, so this way we are keeping mostly white space on our one page of notes. And the last box on your one page of notes is going to be your one-liner again. And so this is where you're allowed to roll your eyes at me if you want to, okay, because maybe if you were paying for this class, you would say, okay, well, I want my money back, okay? But I promise you it's important because you are, in fact, repeating your one-liner again towards the end of your conversation. So whether you are the podcast host doing the interview or if you are the guest, we still have our one-liners. We still have our call to action. So if you are making your one page of notes as we're talking, then by now you might have 3 big boxes. And the way this looks on your piece of paper is a lot of white space, 3 big boxes. At the top is your call to action or your one-liner. Now, one of the things that I sometimes will write down on my one page of notes actually is the literal phrase, 2 words, one-liner. Because if you heard me earlier try to spit out my one-liner for you again as an example, I actually said 2 lines. I said, hi, my name is Elizabeth Walker, host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast. And then I said, and you can subscribe to email at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. So actually, that was 2 lines. And so according to my instructions, that was incorrect, right? I actually tried to squeeze out 2 lines, and that actually is not what I told you to do, right? So writing down the word one-liner this is a good example of you have to remind yourself. So even when we do it over and over and over again, I have a tendency to get excited, and I think that I know my stuff. I think that I've got my lines down. And then in the moment when I'm nervous, or even if I'm excited that anybody's even listening to me talk, then I might do something like continue talking and ruin my one-liner. So the one-liner is so that people can easily hear you and remember you and find you. So, hi, my name is Elizabeth Walker, host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast. So that's your one-liner. And if you are on LinkedIn, now is a good time for me to say, what can be your one-liner? In the past, I have done the same LinkedIn Live audio segment for team leaders who speak. That was something that you would have maybe seen a lot this summer too. So I would have done some segments that are podcast guesting for team leaders who speak and podcast guesting for executives who speak. And if you notice, or if you have been to a couple of these LinkedIn Live audios that I host every Monday morning, the format is really the same. I tell everybody to do the same thing with this one page of notes. But one of the things that you can play around with that is simple enough that it won't mess up with your flow, if you will, right? You can interchange your one-liner depending on if you want to change how people contact you. So if, for example, you don't have a website, which you don't need a website, you would use your LinkedIn profile. And I'm using that example now because if you're here today listening, you have to have a LinkedIn profile. So I know you have one. And your LinkedIn profile is enough for people to be able to find you. And that is all you need. So your one-liner can say, connect with me on LinkedIn. And in the case of the Dear Business Coach podcast, I usually include the link that you want people to use to get in touch with you in the interview. So chances are, since we are talking about podcasting, wherever your podcast is released, like on Spotify or Apple or other podcast players, or as a YouTube video, there's a good chance that your host is going to have a place where they put the place where you say that you want people to find you and get in touch with you. So this sounds kind of like a no-brainer, but if you have your one-liner worked out ahead of time as far as one simple thing or one simple way that you want people to find you and get in touch with you, then that way your host knows exactly what to put in the show notes. Probably you and the other person in the interview will discuss that. But if not, your one-liner can match what you say during the interview and what you tell your host to put in the podcast notes, so that people, when they hear you talk on the podcast, will hear your LinkedIn profile or your website, for example, and when they go to the show notes or when they do interact with something physical on screen, like a YouTube video or the website or the show notes for the podcast, they will recognize that same one-liner that you said in your interview. So why is podcasting really important for young women leaders who speak? And for today's purposes, I'm going to tell you actually what I said last week, is because I think that giving a title to the segment of speakers as young women leaders who speak gives this segment, young women leaders who speak, a place to see that this is a place for you, right? So I have LinkedIn Live audio segments that are called Podcasting for Executives Who Speak. Thank you, Kim. And hey, John. Hi. Kim, you snuck in there. I see your heart. Thank you. Yeah, so giving a title to the segment of people who speak, in this case, young women leaders who speak, I hope that there are people out there who are young women who see this title and think, oh, right. Yeah, I'm a young woman and young women speak, so maybe this is for me. There is a place out there. Somebody is recognizing young women leaders do speak. So that's why this title has come about. So, it does make a difference when you think of yourself as somebody who has a seat at the table, whatever that table is. And in this case, right, a seat at the table is the authority to feel like you are allowed to be there, right? Do you feel that you are worth being invited to a podcast interview? Do you feel that what you have to say, or just being present, sharing your experience and your business and your career and your passions, don't you think that's just enough for you to have a place in a podcast interview to share yourself? So you don't have to have a published book. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't even have to have a college degree or even a high school degree. You are a young woman who speaks, and that makes you someone who is worth listening to. So podcasting is for everybody. And as a young woman who speaks, you deserve the feeling and the place to publish yourself and your work. Podcasting is a free way to do that. So whether you are someone who is a guest or a host, you can use a Zoom interview, you can use a YouTube video, and even something like Spotify that will allow you to release content for free is a way for you to build your authority and your voice just by simply being in that space. So one of the things that I've done before is I've told people, right now while we're in the LinkedIn Live audio, if you're somebody who is also on your phone or on your laptop, if you want to experiment with setting up a podcast meeting with somebody that you've been interested in talking to, now might be a fun time to practice doing that. So if you have your piece of paper out, or if you're on your computer, laptop, or phone, you might want to jot down an email draft. And so what I did last time I came out live with this little exercise, I had a meeting by doing this example with you live in the audio event. So here's what I did, and here's what I recommend you do too if you are following along if you want to. I'm going to go to my LinkedIn profile. If you hear some background noise, that might be my laptop. I'm typing along with you as I do this. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to set up a meet and greet with somebody for an interview. And this is a little bit risky because I'm going to pick somebody who is a contact of mine that I may not have spoken with before. So this will be technically a cold call, but there's somebody who is in my contact list right now. And so that's what I'm going to do live here with you now. So I'm going to go to my profile, and let's see, I'm going to go to my network, and let's see if I can pick out somebody that I might want to talk to. Let me think for a second here. Okay, so I'm going to manage my network. I'm going to connections, because in order to send somebody a direct message, you do need to be connected. So that's something else to consider when you're telling people during your podcast, how do you want your one-liner to sound if you're going to tell people to connect with you after your one-liner. Do you want people to actually hit the connect button when they find your LinkedIn profile? Or do you want to tell people to follow you? You can say connect and follow, or follow and connect, but do make it easy for people. I like to tell people to connect and follow, because connecting is how people are allowed to DM you. And following is how people are allowed to be able to see your content, right? If I'm connected to you, we can DM, but if I'm not following you, I'm not going to see your actual posts pop up in my feed. So just a side note there. Okay, here is Emily Arrington. She's an MBA student at Roanoke College, aspiring event planner and organization. So I am going to send her a cold message today, and I'm going to say, and I'm putting my phone down here in front of me, so if the audio has changed a little bit, I hope you can still hear me. I'm pretty sure you can. So I'm typing. I'm going to say, hi, Emily, comma, next slide. As you may know, I'm a podcast. I am a podcaster. I can say that I am. And I would like to invite you to to a meet and greet for a possible podcast interview. About your work. Okay, so let me reread this. It says, "Hi, Emily. As you may know, I'm a podcaster, and I would like to invite you to a meet and greet for a possible podcast interview about your work." Now, this is what I'm saying because I am a podcaster. Now, let's say you want to invite yourself to a meeting with Emily. You can say anything you want to about your work. You might want to say, "I'm working on online interview content, and I would love to schedule a meet and greet with you to learn more about your work." So listen to that phrasing. If you say something like, "I'm looking to invite you to a meet and greet for possible online interview content," you didn't say you were a podcaster because maybe you're not, but maybe you want to practice interviewing somebody or interviewing with somebody in order to put that interview on a YouTube video. So, we say podcasting, but really this can be the practice of just connecting with people and creating online content in a situation where you are giving yourself the practice to send somebody an email and start a meet and greet. So your first email to somebody, in my recommendation, should be about a sentence, maybe about one sentence. Penny is here in the room today, and it's 9:01, so I know we have to go. I'm going to say, Penny knows why this email is a short and sweet one-liner, right? Because you want to give someone a chance to respond, not to read 3 paragraphs about your background profile. So I'm going to send this email to Emily. Actually, it's a DM. I'm sorry. "Hi, Emily. As you may know, I'm a podcaster. I would like to invite you to a meet and greet for a possible podcast interview about your work." And that's it. And then I'll report back to you and I'll tell you if my message to her worked. Emily is a connection of mine, but we've never spoken. This is a cold DM to her. So let's see what she says. Now I have to let you go because I promise you every time that these segments are 30 minutes long, so technically I'm a minute over, and I love doing these. I hope you guys come back next time, and enjoy your week. You're a superstar.